want to take questions?
Sure. Well, it's a short week. We're down a day, so we're already hustling and scrambling to get ready for this next game. So it's a shaving is optional kind of week around here. But really excited to be in this position. Great win the other night, to be 3-0 in November. These guys are really working hard and been on board, and it's just very fulfilling to see them being in position here to go to a nice bowl game, and who knows, maybe even a chance to play in the MAC championship, depending on how things play out. But that all starts with us taking care of our business and controlling what we can control, and we certainly did that the other night. Thought we had a really good week of prep going into the Eastern Michigan game. You know, when that schedule came out, whenever that was in March, you know, you looked at that schedule and you said, okay, that Eastern Michigan game on the road in November, here's an established program, a team that was picked in the upper half of the league, you know, a veteran team that they had coming back, and you just knew that that game was going to be an important one for us. And obviously we got bowl eligible the week before, but it was still a really important game. So I was pleased that the guys were ready to play. I just felt like we had a great demeanor about us in the hotel and in the locker room. We weren't too high, we weren't too emotional, we were very businesslike, and I think it showed in all three phases in the first 30 minutes of that game. Even though we knew they were such a good passing team, stopping the run is always first and foremost on our list of things to do defensively. Felt like we did a really good job of that. As it turned out, we were 138-70 rushing advantage, which that's a lot lower than we'd like to be offensively, but a really good job by the defense. The 2 turnovers in the first half were critical. Ending their drives, you know, making them head over to the sideline without any points, particularly the one by Solomon Brown at the end of the first half, because we gave up some yards on the kickoff, so they got really good field position, by far their best field position of the half. We missed a couple tackles. Next thing you know, they're in the red zone, and they've got a chance to really cut the lead and gain some momentum going into the break. And then just a great play by Solomon, and really proud of him. He's had a very good season. You know, the Ball State game was not his best game. And he took it to heart, and he bounced back, and he had a really good week of practice, and ended up playing one of his best games against Eastern Michigan. The second half was sort of a mixed bag. You know, we were inconsistent. We missed some tackles on the perimeter. At times we were too soft in coverage. At times we got beat deep in coverage. Offensively, we had a couple 3-and-outs. One time we got stopped on a 4th and very manageable in the high red zone that in my mind was a go all the way. We were again shaky with kickoff and kickoff return, some issues there, but there was no panic. I thought the coaches did a great job on the sideline. I thought our leaders were very focused and just were sort of willing things to happen on the sideline, you know, confronting teammates in a good way that, hey, you know, we're going to take care of this, we're going to take care of business, we're going to get the stops we need to get. And as it turned out, you know, we ended up with 6 sacks, which was critical. The big play from CJ to Aljay after they cut the score to a field goal lead, and then obviously Sean's interception there at the end to really put the game away. So that's a really big win for us. That's one that I think we'll look back on many years from now and feel really good about. So you know, it didn't take long after the game. You know, you get on you shower, you get on the bus, and you know, you start checking your phone, and usually, you know, you get some nice text messages, and my phone is absolutely blowing up about this guy C.W. Dibble. And I'm like, what on earth is going on with this CW guy? So, as you've probably figured out by now, I'm really, I'm like a closet historian. So I got to research this guy, and his full name is Condit Woodhill Dibble. I mean, that sounds like an Anglo-Saxon name if I've ever heard one. And he was a halfback at the Lawrenceville School, which is a prep school in New Jersey. And it's not just a prep school. It is an elite prep school. I mean, it's right in that Princeton area. And it said his nickname was Flash. So now this is all coming together for me because I went to Georgetown with some guys that went to Lawrenceville, and this one guy played lacrosse, and we actually used to call him Sporto. That was his nickname at Lawrenceville, and somehow it carried over to Georgetown. So he goes on to Williams College, which, if you don't know, is one of the top 3-4 liberal arts colleges in the country. Beautiful place. And apparently this guy gets hit in the head too many times. So they were concerned that he lost his sanity and had amnesia. I guess this made national news back in 1897. So he comes over to Buffalo for medical treatment. And that's how he ended up here. And, we've got incredible hospitals in this area, so I guess we probably had incredible hospitals in the area back then, too. He ends up enrolled in school here at UB, wants to go back and play, and then somebody probably told him it's in his best interest if he didn't do that. So he decides to coach, and he leads the 1897 team to a perfect 7-0 record. I couldn't find who they played, so I don't have that information. I do know that Penn and Yale were co-national champs that year. And you got to give this guy credit. He goes 7-0, he drops the mic, and he walks away, and he goes on to have a successful banking career back in Massachusetts. I don't think they let him back into Williams College, but he made it as a banker anyway. So I thought that was pretty cool. All right, so that's the history lesson for today. But moving on to Kent State. So obviously they're having a tough year, and I think the lesson there is the schedule they played early on is just brutal. I mean, Pitt, Tennessee, Penn State. I don't know how anybody comes out of that. And so now you end up sort of, limping into your MAC schedule. And they've been very competitive in a lot of these MAC games. So I actually think they're playing a lot better, and they're probably, starting to be a little bit more cohesive now that they've gotten out of the month of September. And it's very dangerous when you play a team like this because they're much better than their record. They played a very difficult out-of-conference schedule. You've watched them multiple times already this year on crossover video getting ready for other teams. And so you have a lot of respect for them. And I will say this. Their morale is obviously very good because they're still playing really, really hard. And, they're going to come over here very hungry to get a win. I'm sure they'll turn on our video and, we're doing some good things, but nobody's going to, watch us and say, oh, we don't have a chance against these guys. We've got plenty of our own issues that we're addressing. And we've got a short week. They've got an extra day of prep. So, you start watching their video, and, the thing that jumps out to me is this is going to be like any other game in this conference. And they do present some real potential matchup issues for us. Offensively, they are more than capable. Ulatowski, their quarterback, he's thrown 14 touchdowns, and he's got two legit all-MAC type receivers in number 2 McCray and 0 Floria. Both of those guys have 40 catches this season and are averaging over 16 yards a catch. So they're two legitimate explosive receivers. You watch the third play of the game against Akron, and they hit one of them on a little switch route. and the next thing you know, it's a 70-yard touchdown. Their running back, Thomas, is a Minnesota transfer. He's a good player. Very familiar with their offensive coordinator, Mark Carney. He's a really good coach, Ohio guy, was UNC Charlotte's OC for 3 or 4 years, was the OC at the University of Richmond, where they did a really good job, played quarterback at Fordham, coached at Fordham, kind of comes from an extended branch on the same coaching tree that I do. Not to be confused with Art Carney, who's one of my all-time favorite actors, Norton and the Honeymooners, if you're not familiar. But Mark does a great job, and he'll have those guys ready. They've created a lot of explosive plays this year, and I'm sure he'll be looking for ways to attack our weaknesses. Over on the defensive side of the ball, they're a base 4 down. They like to start in a lot of 2 high and then roll, come down and play cover 1 or roll to 3 deep in different directions. This is a very high pressure defense. Probably the most pressure we've seen on film, at least going in since the UConn game. So these guys, first, second down, they are not afraid to heat you up. We saw a lot of bear front the other night against Eastern, which we expected going into that game. I think I mentioned that in last week's presser. And you know what happens if somebody does something against you and it's successful, which you could argue that Eastern, gave us some problems the other night, then there's a likelihood that you might see that again, right? That's a lot of what coaches do, right? They watch film and they say they had a problem with this or they had a problem with that, and we're going to copycat that in some way, shape, or form, make it fit our system, and try to attack them in a similar way this week. I think they've got some really legit defensive ends there. Number 6, Daly, is a really rugged guy. And number 7, Harmon, is a really long guy. One of those guys that can cover a lot of ground, and very good pass rushers, and their backups are good too. I believe one of them actually was one of the guys that left here in the December exodus in last year. So another week, I guess, with some kind of subplot. You just never know how things are going to go in college football 2024. Their special teams, very solid. I think they've got really good skill at the returner positions. I mentioned Floria as a receiver. He's also a very aggressive punt returner, very good punt returner. Their punt return unit is pretty aggressive with their rush looks. They give you a lot of multiplicity to deal with. They've got an Aussie punter, 96 Smith, who's one of the better punters in the league, averaging over 42 a punt. He's got 12 punts of over 50 and 24 inside the 20. So he's about the punting equivalent of Nicole Kidman and Margot Robbie. Love our Aussies. So with that said, I'll open it up for your questions and keep this thing moving.
Senior night, Pete, it's only one season with a lot of these guys, but what are some of your thoughts on that group and how they've helped you get this program to where it is?
Yeah, they've been awesome. They've been awesome. We've said this so many times, just how they've embraced me and embraced the staff and embraced the culture. They've been totally engaged since day one, and a lot of them have really worked hard to become great leaders this year and push themselves out of their comfort zone. And we've tried to create a lot of opportunities for them to do that. I'm not a big believer in a bunch of emotional stuff right before the game on senior night, because ultimately what you're going to remember is the game itself and hopefully getting a win. So what we've been doing really the entire month of November, because we knew how important November would be for our football team, it's kind of been senior month around here. And so, I talk to Coach Jim McNally all the time, and in one of our conversations, he actually suggested some of that. I mentioned to him about how I don't like, cramming in a bunch of senior stuff in the last 24, 48 hours. And he talked about just trying to make every day special around here, which is something I think we've done for 10 months, but we've been really trying to get those guys speaking up in meetings. We had, a few extra days before Ball State. We had one extra day before Eastern Michigan, so we took advantage of some of that to get our seniors talking in front of the team, some impromptu stuff just where they could share what's been on their mind. I think the fact that we've done game week captains has really been good because we've had several weeks where we've been able to recognize seniors on a weekly basis and put them in leadership roles. From that standpoint, we've had several seniors wear 41 for us this year, which is obviously a huge deal around here in terms of the tradition in our program. So we've tried to make it special for those guys all year, and I would say the best part about it is that they know it's not going to be their last game. So we've been talking in a quick turnaround here, a very quick turnaround, about how it needs to be very, very much all business and a sense of urgency and sort of like cramming for a test here to get ready for Kent State. And I'm sure some of them will get a little bit emotional because it'll be their last home game, but my hope is that now that they know they're pretty much assured of getting a bowl game at this point, that they can stay focused on the task at hand.
Pete, earlier in the season you had 3 key losses, Nick McMillan and Savion Barlow, but your team's still in relatively good health this late in the season.
Yeah.
What do you credit it to?
It starts with our strength and conditioning program. Ryan Horton has done such a great job, and his staff have done such a great job. And, we talk a lot about communicating here and making sure that everybody's on the same page. And the way they communicate with our sports med staff and our nutrition staff, and how they communicate and give me quality feedback in every staff meeting. I feel like I know how our team feels physically, not just because we get an injury report, but because Ryan Horton and his staff have great insight and great data. And sometimes you can spend a lot of resources and collect a lot of data, but sometimes you don't know how to use it, how to apply it, and then you need to be willing to make some tough decisions and sometimes change what you want to do because of what the data is telling you. And I think we've done a really good job of that. There's a PowerPoint slide that I've shown the team probably 50 times since the end of January after we got here, and that was that we want to be healthy and happy every day in the building. We want to be in the best possible position to win our first game, and then we want to be in the best possible position to be strong and healthy and play great football in the month of November. And a lot of that goes back to what we've done in the weight room, what we've done in this indoor facility from a strength and conditioning standpoint, and then the cooperation, the cohesiveness between the support staff and the coaching staff to make some of those tough decisions about doing more at times, doing less at times. That might be practice in general, that might be the physicality of practice, that might be whether we're in full pads or uppers on a given day. We started backing off on some of our Sundays and spending a little less time on the field. You get to this point in the season and you look at who's shouldering the burden for you, and we're playing a fair amount of guys in some spots, but like that offensive line, those 5 guys have played every snap for the last 3 or 4 games. You look at our linebackers, and they're not coming off the field. Deion Crawford is not coming off the field. Vic Snow is rarely coming off the field. So you've got to really manage that stuff closely, and to see the other night that some of our players hit top speeds for the year, that's pretty remarkable. And that's so that starts with Ryan and his leadership, which, to be totally honest with you, I think his leadership is even now extending beyond the football program, because we've got a wonderful new facility, and he's worked closely with the administration and some of the other strength coaches in other sports to make sure that we've got a really comprehensive plan in there to make sure that our other teams are getting to utilize that facility when we're not. And so that's been really good to see too, because that's what I like to see out of my staff. Guys that don't live in their own little world, and guys that want to see everybody around here improve and get better. And I think Ryan's done a fabulous job with all those things. So I think it starts with him. And then, the rest of us have to be open-minded and listen and adjust. And so it's good to see. Yes, the season-ending injuries are going to happen, but we've had very few of the soft tissue injuries, and guys that are playing a lot of snaps have been able to turn around and play a lot of snaps the next week.
And it's kind of the players with their health, how does that factor in, whether it's managing their own workload, communicating, hey, maybe something doesn't feel right? How do the players do it?
Yeah, no question. Morale, I've said this from the start. I remember talking to our athletic department staff in a preseason meeting and getting a little bit emotional about talking about the morale of this team. But morale will help you overcome a lot of other things. It's amazing when you have good morale how all of a sudden it's rare that anybody's ever late for anything. And when you have good morale, it's incredible how guys don't get sick, or guys play through bumps and bruises at 85%. If morale's not good, then human nature being what it is, then maybe some of those guys that just naturally are on the fence and can go either way, maybe they're not pushing themselves quite as hard. So I don't think there's anything more important, and I don't think there's any intangible that has helped this team more than the morale and the chemistry.
Pete, Sean Dole's having a season that's obviously it's popping on a stat sheet. But from your perspective, what is maybe like the intangible that we don't see, that fans don't see, that allows Sean to come in day in and day out and have the success that he's having?
Yeah, he's driven at an elite level. He's just one of those, like, if this guy ever ended up in sales, he's going to end up being like your top salesman. It's just, he's just driven to that level to be the best he can be at anything he does and everything he does. And his level of preparation, the amount of film that he comes in and watches on his own, the amount of time that he's popping his head in to Joe Bowen's office. Some days I'll stop in to see the defensive staff. I've got a question about something I saw on film or something I saw in practice, and you open the door and he's sitting there. And Red's probably sitting right next to him, and one or two of our other guys might be sitting there as well. And they just don't want to leave the office, and that's a really good problem to have, right? Because we're so respectful of their time, and we're trying to kick them out of here so that they can go get off their feet. But he just he loves the game. He loves the game, and it shows.
Talked about the morale. Is that also part of explaining that sequence in the game where they score to cut it to 3, you come right back with the Alj touchdown to take the lead back again? Like, that was kind of a pivotal moment.
Yeah.
Does that go back to the morale part you're talking about?
I think that's a big part of it, that they believe in each other. I would say with our offense, having a veteran coordinator like Dave Patnode has been very helpful this year, because we obviously started off the year slow, and we had a new quarterback and a lot of growing pains there. Some games where quite frankly we didn't perform all that well, but Dave is such an even-keeled guy, and he's stayed the course. And I think the kids have fed off of that, you know, we never get too high or too low on offense, and CJ very much so is the same way. And you know, they went out there, and it's just kind of a we do what we do type of mentality. We ran something similar early in the game, not so much off drop back. It was more play action, but tried to get a similar matchup early in the game, and didn't connect on it. And it was great to go back to that and get Alj matched up on their linebacker on the wheel route. Great throw. And Alj, I think, hit like 20.5 miles per hour on that catch and run after the catch. So, yeah, no, I was Eastern had certainly seized the momentum at that point and was feeling pretty good about themselves, and we immediately took the wind out of their sails.
A lot of different subplots coming into this final game, but what's the one big thing that, you know, you're telling the team, that the alumni, everybody who's going to hopefully, you know, pack that stadium Tuesday needs to know about what this team is going into that game and what they could be leaving?
Yeah, we're still striving to play 60 minutes in all three phases, and we've had spurts of really, really good football, and then we've had, you know, some heart attack type moments too. But this team is, you know, they've played with energy, they've played together. They've one side of the ball has tried to pick up the other at times during the season, which has been really cool to see. And they've just been, I think, really, really good representatives of this university on and off the field. They know that they are at the start of hopefully building something that is going to be growing and special for this community in the years to come, and so they know that's very much a work in progress. But what they've been able to do, sort of getting things turned back in the right direction, has been special. And I think if we can figure out a way to get this win, which won't be easy, it'll be a really really good, solid regular season for them, and hopefully set us up for a nice trip in December.
This quarterback secondary is still a little bit of shuffling. I saw John Keogh's on the depth chart.
Mm-hmm.
What's kind of the goal in finding the right combination?
Yeah, the goal is to not get the ball thrown over our head, right? Which happened a couple times the other night. So you gotta keep creating competition there, keep challenging guys, and you know, guys have to respond. And you know, we've talked a lot about CJ and how he's progressed, and how his now 11 games of experience is starting to show in his decision making and his poise. You need to see that at all positions across the board. And so I thought we played better at safety the other night, but obviously didn't play as well as we'd like to at corner. And so we got to continue to challenge those guys, because they're certainly going to get challenged in the games from these teams that you know, see something happen in previous games and try to keep attacking you out there. And I know I mentioned this to you before, but you know, you can't sit in the same coverages all night. You know, you've got to be able to be multiple and mix things up. Some of that is to try to protect your weaknesses, but some of it is that, you know, any quarterback, if you're just sitting in the same coverages, is going to find ways to pick you apart. So you've got to be able to present different pictures and different disguises and different pressures and all those different things you do defensively. So it's a work in progress, but we're certainly not giving up on anybody. And to the contrary, you know, we're trying to create competition, and you know, John Keogh did play a few snaps the other night at safety in a package or two. You know, we're going to continue to look at our corner depth as well.
What was your reaction when you saw the Wolf Blitzer video?
Yeah, so I actually reached out to him shortly after I got here, and sent him a note, and just said that how excited I was to be here and how grateful I was to be here, and how alums like him are really important to the university, and we want them to become fans and be connected with the football program. So we've been keeping in touch, for the last 9 months or so. And as we were starting to do some of this senior stuff this month, reached out to him a few days ago and asked him to put that together for us, which obviously he did a fabulous job of that. And we showed that to the team this morning, and it was extremely well received. So just, all those little things make it a football program, right? You want to be inclusive, not exclusive, and so you want your alumni to feel like they're a part of what you're trying to do, and hopefully stay involved and stay connected with it, and be more engaged with the university as a whole. So it was great to get him to do that for us, and appreciate his time.
Pete, one more if I may. I just wanted to go back to the story. You told us in the opening statement. I don't know how you determine which characteristic for it, but do you think at some point maybe a C.W. Dibble Award is a staple of this program at some point?
It sounds like a good idea to me. We might have to figure out a way to get that done. He was a running back, so maybe that becomes the award for the outstanding running back every year. I'll make sure. I like adding to John Fuller's to-do list, so I will. That's well noted. Thank you. All right, thanks a lot.